Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to another episode of Good Talk, and thank you for joining us today. There is an old poem by Rudyard Kipling, and it goes something like this. You're going to learn some poetry today. It says, "East is east, and west is west, and never the twain shall meet." Well, today we have somebody on who has actually found the sweet spot between Eastern philosophies and Western philosophies, and has used it to create a strategy that has helped so many people find happiness, overcome anxiety, and just become better versions of ourselves. She's a wellness coach, she's an author, and she's a whole lot more. So please welcome my guest for tonight, Dr. Asha Prasad. Hi, Doctor. How are you?
Hi, nice to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. You mentioned that your parents are from India. Which part of India are they from?
Yes, from Karnataka, from Bangalore.
Bangalore.
Yes.
So you're a Southie as well.
Southie as well. Exactly.
Nice to meet a fellow Southie. Now, I want to get straight to it. This is such an interesting topic. To be honest, I've never seen, I never knew that Eastern philosophy and Western philosophies could meet. But you have found that sweet spot. So it's amazing. Now, I want to read something from your website that you wrote. You said, I was obsessed with my outer success for years by focusing on the next degree I could add to my wall. Every new certification I completed would cut to the bone. Something was missing in my life. It wasn't until I started blending my chiropractic healing and Eastern philosophies that I found my sweet spot: success inside and out. Now, what Eastern philosophies has helped you find your sweet spot?
That's a great question. You know, the thing is that because of my background, the Eastern background, the Indian background, but growing up in the Western world, in the States, it was all about integrating. You know, I spent a lot of summers, a lot of time with my grandparents in India. So I was exposed to a lot of the Eastern philosophies and ideas of life and spirituality. But then to come into the Western world and to participate, there was a lot of struggle, because there were certain ideas and certain things that we were learning in the home and also from our background that wasn't applying to the Western world. So it was interesting because, you know, this need to achieve, the need for all sorts of external acknowledgement and achievements became so great. But there was always something inside that said, does it have to be just one way, or can it be both? And that was one of the things that happened for me along the way from a very young age, that I started to see how you could start to integrate these two things. And really, it's not that one is better than the other. It's about finding that middle ground and integrating it and embodying that in different ways and applying that to everything in your life.
Okay,
and that's what really happened for me in that process.
Okay, so what are the Western philosophies that you can think of that have actually helped you become the person that you are?
Well, I do think that so whenever you look at the Eastern and Western philosophies, just as a whole, just kind of generally, the Eastern philosophies tend to look at more of a holistic, more of the whole picture. And the Western is more about the individual part, the individual.
Yes.
And so, yes, we are individuals here. We're individual human beings with our own unique talents and gifts and things that we are here to do. But there's also this whole part. So what really helped me along the way was to be able to see not only the small individual part, but the entire picture. And that's actually in my chiropractic practices, for example, with dealing with patients, this is where it really started to come up to me to see, like, okay, this person has pain, this person has discomfort, they're ill, they've got some, some sicknesses. But what is really causing that? Is there a bigger picture than only, focusing on the one little part? And that, I would say, is one of the biggest things that has helped me, be able to do the things that I've been able to do and continue to do. That is always looking at it from the both and looking at from the perspective of the whole versus, not really versus, but including the individual, but also including all.
Yeah, because over in the West, in fact, even I think more specifically America, the concept of self is very prominent. Whereas in Eastern philosophy, we don't have the concept of self. Everything, we are the sum of our past decisions. I think Buddha it's in Buddhism, if I'm not mistaken. I read in your website also that you sort of say, like, for you healing is beyond pharmaceuticals. Right, pharmaceutical medication and all that, and you believe that you have to look at the human condition as a holistic rather than just organs and pill. Could you elaborate on that one? And what do you tell your patients to get better?
Absolutely. That's a great question. You know, the thing about it is that we have different concepts in the Western and Eastern world of what healing is. Healing really comes from within. Our bodies and our minds and our spirits, it has the ability to heal itself. It only needs to be given the right environment, the right nourishment. And so what happens is a lot of times we always think that healing is just a physical thing. So for example, somebody comes in, they have pain. Most of the time, what is done is a prescription medication or a painkiller is given to suppress the pain. However, the pain could be there for other reasons. It can be telling us something. Something is wrong. Something needs to change. Maybe we need to eat better, eat healthier, make healthier choices. Maybe we need to get more sleep. Maybe we need to, you know, take more time, downtime, balance our life a little bit. So that's where I really encourage and educate patients and clients to look at the whole picture, not just focusing on where you have the pain or what you're dealing with, but really be able, and then we take steps to look at what is really needed, because our body is our vehicle here. It's talking to us, so to speak, at all times. It's giving us signals. And a lot of times in our society, and I would say more so in the Western society, we are taught to suppress whatever we feel. We're not encouraged to listen to that and kind of go into it and embrace it and go, what is that about? What can I be learning here? Is there something that I can learn? So that's a little bit more on that. Yes.
Okay. So it's kind of interesting to me because Western and Eastern philosophies are very different. Some parts are very different. The way we look at things. How do your clients respond to you when you come with these philosophies to them, besides the standard yoga, meditation? I mean, I'm sure you have other philosophies that you. Right. So how do they accept it?
You know, it's interesting because right now I currently live in Europe. Currently, growing up in the States, but I live in Europe currently. And it is interesting because I think the way that my patients and clients responded in the States or respond from other parts of the world is different than here. Most of the people that are drawn to come work with me in any way, whether it's through online or in my practices, they are already open a little bit in the way of thinking. Maybe they've been doing some reading, maybe they've been listening to programs just like yours, for example, and podcasts and educating themselves, you know, on different ideas. So they've already got the curiosity. But, you know, I have always used the way of always meet people where they are. So what that means is I don't believe in forcing something to somebody. I'm not going to tell somebody that what they're doing is wrong, because we all are doing the things that we're doing for a reason. But I do feel like people are drawn to this kind of work because there's something inside of them that is speaking to them that something needs to change, and they just don't know how to. So then they reach out. So they respond quite well. Yes.
So how do you? How did you get to this point where you actually decided, being a doctor yourself, and I'm sure you're very accomplished in academics. When I read that part in your bio where you said you were getting degrees, I was like, oh my God, I hope my mom doesn't listen to this. But how do you get to a point where you thought, you know what, this is not enough. I want to bring more of Eastern philosophies into this.
Right. You know what, for me, it was about, there was something inside of me that no matter what achievements, no matter what accomplishments that I was accumulating, so to speak, there was something inside of me that just, I wasn't fulfilled. I wasn't happy, truly happy. I wasn't feeling that contentment. I thought there's always more. So I felt myself seeking things. And for me, that bothered me on some level. On a daily basis, you know, I journal a lot daily, and I kept on, you know, writing about the same things. And I thought, what is that? So at that time, for me, I went through some personal tragic losses in my life. That totally shifted my entire perspective. And it got me, it really, you know, they always say, you know, whenever something really brings you to your knees and really brings you to like what you consider rock bottom, that's where I felt that I was on an emotional and spiritual level. And that's exactly where I started this, and I started the climb back up and to really discover. So for me, it made sense that if I'm doing this, I've got to share it with the people. I can't just do it for me and not let it affect everything, because then there's this disconnect. There's no integrity in what I'm doing. And so that voice, that inner voice, the intuition got stronger and stronger and stronger, where you just can't ignore it. And you just know, in your heart, not really in your mind, but in your heart, that this is your calling. This is what you got to do.
Nice. That is true. Just to go back a bit, I mean, because since you say that your family are from India, right? So I'm sure, I don't know whether, have you been to India?
I've been there a lot of times, yes.
A lot of times.
I have a lot of family there still.
A lot of family there. What do you think about the current spiritual gurus of India? What do you think of that? I know this has been deviating from what I sent to you, but I'm just curious. I want to know.
No, it's okay. It's interesting. You know what? I think, there are some magnificent gurus out there that are helping a lot of people, helping awaken a lot of people, inspire people, giving them ideas. Again, we are all human beings. So there's a humanistic side to that as a guru, as somebody that is a master or a teacher, if the way I look at it is, you got to be doing your own work as well at the same time that you're helping people. So that way there is some integrity and authenticity. So I think, and when I say that, I think that sometimes people will look at a guru like there's somebody up here, whereas, yes, maybe they have had opportunities and circumstances that have helped them, get a little bit wiser or a little bit more awakened, more conscious. But that doesn't make them imperfect, because I think a lot of times people put them on pedestals, and that can be a dangerous thing. That can be a really dangerous thing. That is true. Because we're all humans. We're all humans.
Exactly. It's funny when you say that, because if you go back to history, the term Buddha basically means the enlightened one, right? It means it's a terminology. In fact, it's a term given to somebody who achieves that state, which sort of implies that everybody can achieve that state.
Exactly.
Right.
That's right.
So when you talk about people like this, is it possible for us, everyday people, sort of, if you want to put us in that category, to actually achieve that state? Do you think it's possible for all of us to achieve that?
I do. It's interesting, because one of the things I always think about is that, it's easy to be in an enlightened state when you're sitting on top of a mountaintop, meditating and doing yoga, but it's all about bringing that experience to your day-to-day life. And I absolutely think that we all have that capability. It's just a matter of what are we willing to do to achieve that in our moment by moment life.
Yeah, it is tougher for us.
Yes.
It is tougher for us because we have too much noise around us to actually, So I want to get to your book. You're an author, and as somebody who wants to be an author, it's quite nice to meet someone. But I have to say, in this podcast, I've spoken to quite a few authors, but yours is the most unique title I've ever seen in a book, which is Authentic Alignment. Right? So what's that book about? What's your book about?
So this book that I wrote, Authentic Alignment, that is really about bringing awareness to people about what health and wellness and well-being, happiness really is. I wrote it specifically with some experiences that I've had also with patients that I have treated over the years, to share how people have transformed their lives, from coming in with back pain, for example, or a headache. Because of really delving into the 4 parts of what really, makes us who we are, the physical, the mental, emotional, and spiritual. And so I really talk about and explain that to people in that book. What does that mean? There's these 4 parts, but how do you integrate those? How can you access those? Maybe you're a really strong athlete, physically fit, very strong physically, but maybe mentally or emotionally, you're not, really focusing on that. You're not really putting any effort or nurturing that. So that book was really, and that's what I mean by the authentic alignment, is about really the alignment from within, but also bringing all of you together, just all of you together, that authentic alignment. So that way you can go into the world, no matter what you're doing, no matter where you are, and be exactly who you are here to be and meant to be.
You also talk about in your website, you mentioned that you talk about how our thoughts, our inner and outer self sort of go out of sync, right? And how do we bring it back to sync then?
That's a really good question. So there are a couple of different things that are happening whenever we're going out of sync. So of course, we've got, like, on the physical level, we've got, the subconscious and conscious parts of the brain. The subconscious is kind of like the hard drive where all the information is stored that's ever happened in our lives. And our conscious is, 5% of it that we use to actually consciously think. This is why it's very important to master that and to focus to, be by, for example, thinking positive thoughts and doing that kind of thing. But the subconscious is really something that gets triggered, and it kind of runs the show if we allow it to. So it's very important to be able to realize where our triggers are, what our patterns are, and what it is that we're really wanting to change. So, like, for example, I'll give you an example of somebody that wants to lose weight. Okay. They can say that they want to lose weight, but if their actions and the reason why, like, if they don't know their why of why they're wanting to lose weight, then they're going to keep on repeating the failed diets and the failed exercise routines. They're going to keep on doing that repeatedly. So it's about being able to access that. Now, I will say there are several different practices that you can do as an individual to get into that. But I do feel when people work with somebody that can help them, because there are a lot of blind spots that we can't see. We can only do that in reflection and conversation with other people to be able to realize that, to become more aware.
Yeah, and I think you also talk about this more when I think there was one blog post of yours that said set intentions, not resolutions.
Yes.
Right. So it's basically moving with more intent. So a resolution, if you don't have intent, you don't have why, it's not going to materialize.
It's probably not going to stick, to be honest with you. It's not going to stick because you're not going to have any real sense of a bigger purpose of your why, of why you want to do it. Because, if you want to be healthy, for example, and you really, really want that, then you're going to take the steps. It's more meaningful, I guess, rather than just kind of a to-do list of these are the things that I want to accomplish.
Yes. Yeah. In fact, there's a study that says I think about close to 90% of resolutions are not achieved by the 6th month. Exactly. They're already gone. Yeah. So I guess that's why there's no why, there's no purpose behind the thing.
Right.
Now you have founded something called the Prasad method.
Yes.
And I loved your description of it on the website where you talk about praying and then getting the whole prasadam. I loved that part. It was really nice. What is the Prasad method?
So the Prasad method. So just like the concept, Vinodh, about you offer to God in the temples, in the Hindu temples, you offer flowers or food, and the priest blesses it and then redistributes it. Okay. So that's why, and of course, since my last name is Prasad, I thought that's what I want to call it, because it's all about redistributing, really, really, searching within yourself for the answers, for your gifts, your creativity, and then redistributing that, offering that into the world to inspire, to create, whatever it is that your purpose is. And so this methodology I developed in helping clients and patients to really help them access that, to really get to the core of who they are and help them achieve happiness, contentment, fulfillment, joy, and all the things that they want to do in life from a deeper place from within.
Okay, that's interesting. Now, besides being a doctor and all that, you also provide coaching to people, right? You basically provide coaching on like a one-to-one basis. Now, is this open to everybody, and how can people get in touch with you to go for this coaching?
Absolutely. You know what I do? I do a lot of coaching individuals. I do coach in companies and groups. I do private teaching, of classes. I do a variety of things, but it's absolutely open to whoever is needing it and wanting help in this way. The best way is for them to go to my website, theprasadmethod.com, and then just click on the Work with Dr. Asha and then follow the steps just to contact us and let us know exactly what it is that we could possibly help you with.
Nice. And to those watching, I will also share the link later on so everything is done. Now, you spoke something quite interesting on your Facebook page. You said you used this term where we sabotage our own happiness.
Yeah.
I've never heard this. So how do we sabotage our own happiness?
That's interesting. You know what? With happiness, so happiness is one of those things that we all strive for, we all want.
Yep.
But a lot of times we are sabotaging ourselves by, for example, okay, just some basic examples is we will start to listen to the inner critic inside of our minds.
I
Okay,
hate that guy.
we all do that. That voice, that voice, you're like, no. But then we start to give into it. And then what happens is we start looking outside of ourselves and we start asking other people their opinions about what we want or what we're doing. And then their voice starts influencing us. And so that gets louder and louder. So that's one of the classic ways that we sabotage our own happiness. We also choose sometimes to stay with the certainty of something. So think about, like, if you're in a really, really, I don't want to say a dead end job, but a job that you really dislike, that takes so much energy, and that it's not fulfilling you, it's not bringing you passion. However, you still you choose to stay there because you're like, well, I'm certain about this. And I'm not saying, everybody should go out and quit their job. Not at all. I'm not saying that.
Yes. We just want to be clear, right? We don't want to mess.
Let me be clear about that. But here's the thing, is that choosing the known, it's not necessarily, that's sabotaging our happiness. If there's something else out there that we know that brings us joy and we're not doing it or not working towards it, we're sabotaging our happiness right there.
Yes, exactly. I just want to share a comment from one of our viewers, Pradeep Chandrasekharan, said, I think a strong why really helps with the how. That's quite an interesting thing. And actually building on that comment and actually what we were talking about just now, a lot of us, I think in today's world, we forget our true, not say our true calling, but what we really want to do. We forget it. And it's quite difficult to go back into yourself and to find that, right? Because of all the noise and where you are and all this kind of things. I think a why is also facilitated. It can be, your why is, I think, facilitated by your what. Right? Now, I want to ask you, how do we find out the what before we go to the why and the hows?
Well, I kind of see it as this. I kind of find, if someone's having difficulty finding what their life purpose is or what their purpose is, I would say, take a week's time and find out times that you are really joyous, that you're really caught up in the moment, that, time passes and nothing can take you away from whatever that is. Find the little things that bring you joy. Okay. It's going to give you a good indication of what you could be doing. Okay. You start to make a list of that. And then you start to also make a list of the things that you're grateful for as well. I'm a firm believer in, practicing gratitude on a daily basis is one of the things that I find very, very useful because it helps expand your energy. It helps expand your thought process, your consciousness, to be in a place to receive your what and your why will come easier to you, because a lot of times we block it. We block it in our minds with all these, thoughts of, I don't know what to do. And I don't know, where do I do that? How do I do that? But we kind of have to break it down to get into that inner place of that joy and figuring out what that is.
Interesting. So basically you're saying to be more gracious, and then and when you're in that state of mind, you get the what. And hopefully that
what comes. Exactly.
Nice. Okay, so now being in this whole lockdown or partial lockdown, wherever you are in this world, it's a tough time, right? I think people are sort of appreciating the more time at home, the more time with family, as well as juggling working from home and all that. But I think, in my opinion, once this whole pandemic is over, people are going to pretty much go back to the way things were before, because you want to get back to work, you want to get back to solving things and everything. How do we find a balance between work life and home life? How do we achieve that?
It's very interesting because this is such a unusual time in the entire world. I mean, most of the world is still on lockdown, or at least partial lockdown, and it is a very tough time. And I do think, and I've talked to a lot of people about this, about how much they've enjoyed the slowing down of things. Okay.
Yes.
Even though they're working from home and everything. So it's actually helping them realize and see the benefit of this work-life balance. And how much actually, I was talking to somebody just earlier today, and he was telling me how more productive he is. And he was surprised because he's like, I spend most of my day in a t-shirt and jeans, and because he's usually, you know, in a suit and tie and everything. And he said, you know, I don't get this. So it's really interesting, because I was asking him what happens, you know, in a few weeks or months or whenever we go back, what are you going to do? And he's already actually implementing a change in his schedule. So here's the interesting thing. So I would say, you know, I don't know when these lockdowns are going to be lifted up, you know, from the countries, or what's going to happen. But one of the things is that you can start to see the importance of the work-life balance it's just really important, because whenever you are, for example, you know, healthy and strong and relaxed and get good rest, you can be much more productive in your work. You can be much more creative and all those things. And at the same time, if you have a sense of accomplishment at your work and in your career, whenever you come home, it's easier to shut that off and enjoy your time with family and friends and everything like that. So I think it's very, very important. And I really hope and encourage people to take this time now, even though we are in tough times right now. Take the time to start to realize how you feel, you know, how you can incorporate, like if you're not used to having like a healthy habits right now, like even working out or meditation or whatever, now's the time to start, you know, dipping your toe in the water and trying those things out to see how they can benefit you pretty soon whenever we get back to the fast-paced life again.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting what you said, because even for me personally, like I'm really appreciating this pause, because it's funny when you are calm and you're more relaxed, things a lot more things happen than when you are rushing and you're like, oh, I got this to do, that to do. You forget about it, and it's weird. Like now, I'm getting far more things done than I used to before, and I'm learning so much. You know, I guess this episode has taught me like to be patient, to be focused, and good things will happen definitely when you are like that. Now, a lot of the things that come about from working and being in work life and the current times that we are in right now is like a rise in anxiety. People are anxious, yes, thanks to, I mean, for a lot of reasons now. How do we overcome this anxiety? How do we combat it?
Yeah, you know what? The anxiety is, I think, at an all-time high now for a variety of reasons, as you said. And, you know, one of the things with anxiety, it comes from fear. Most of the time, it's about the fear of the unknown. And a lot of times when we have fear of the unknown, it also means that we are projecting ourselves into the future, the what if, you know, oh my gosh, what if I lose my job? What if I do this? What if my company, you know, dissolves? What happens? What if this? And so what's really, really important is to really practice presence and really staying in the moment, which I know is a challenging thing to do, but it's very important to do. One of the things that I would recommend for people, and there's different forms of meditation, but meditation and also doing some breath work, some very concentrated breathing exercises, helps you combat this anxious and anxiety kind of feelings that will help calm you down. Because again, just like what you were saying just a few moments ago, you've noticed with this calm, you know, this kind of pause that we're having, this calmness, great things are happening. You're just more relaxed. That's the state that we want to be in more so in order to allow things to take its course and for us to be able to know what to do in the next moment.
Sorry, but again, we are sort of deviating a bit because I was just thinking, you talk a lot. I mean, you're not like the usual. I mean, because you have brought spirituality and Eastern philosophies to Western modalities, as you call it. Right. And plus being a doctor and all that, it sort of seems like for you believe that science and God and spirituality can actually coexist. Is that your belief?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And do you think that the whole modern approach of splitting the two is a more dangerous and more negative than rather combining them?
I think, I think it is not looking at the whole picture. Okay. So it's kind of like, taking half of us and only focusing on half of us. It's kind of like, for example, someone shows up with, pain in their pinky and not looking at the rest of the hand or the arm, not looking at the connection. And so it's kind of like, it's actually the both and. One of my mentors always talks about this idea of the both and it's so true. It's being, one is not better than the other. They may be strong independently, but if you combine them, then that's when the real strength comes and the real magic. So I think that there is room to be able to integrate the two. And I think that we are missing out.
Yeah,
We're missing out. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Another very interesting term that you use in your website and in your work is Imagineering. Now, I've only heard the term Imagineering when I read about Disney. I think
Yes.
Disney called them Imagineers.
Exactly.
What is it to you, Imagineering?
So Imagineer, I love that word. I love that word. And yes, actually, Walt Disney was the one who called his employees Imagineers.
Yeah.
And it's really about using your creativity. Whenever you were a little kid, and hopefully you still do this now, but where you sit there and you just daydream and you just get creative and you're like, oh, what if we could do this? What if we could do that? And then bringing that imagination and creativity in a practical way, being able to manifest that in your life. And so I encourage, a lot of my clients and patients to use this Imagineering, take some time to be that child who didn't see any limits, who would just think really outside the box, because there's some things there that you can actually be creating in your life, because we are Imagineering all the time. We are creating our experience.
So in based on what you're saying now, so I think it's also fair to say, I mean, again, please tell me if you disagree, that the modern education system sort of kills that aspect of humanity. Because the funny thing is, yesterday I was just talking to this person, her name was Denise, Dr. Denise, and she was telling me, she was talking about how a child is always confident. A child has so many, vivid dreams and fantasies. Doesn't adulthood and the whole process of going to school kill that?
It does, in a way. That's a very interesting take on that, because I do see it as, okay, so we have with the modern school society, the way it is in our society, it teaches us different limitations, different rules, different boundaries. It kind of puts us, in a box in a way.
Yes.
And in some ways, yes, it's necessary the way our society is set up, but in fact, it really stifles and it really kills the creativity and the freedom and the spontaneity, the freedom. It absolutely does. And that's why you're seeing, and I'm not too sure, in India and in Asia and in Malaysia and everything, I'm not too sure if they have a lot of these free schools, these free learning schools. I'm not too sure if you're familiar with some of them. There are some schools that are coming up now that are more about, okay, we're going to teach you these things. However, we're going to have a creative aspect to it to let the kids actually develop themselves in a very open, creative, which I think is a great way to integrate the two. I think it's necessary, because you're right. It is. There's this idea that we have to grow up and be responsible and we have to do these things. And yes, there is a part of that in society. But to lose that childlike innocence and that creativity, that's a shame. That's really a shame. That needs to be nurtured. Yeah,
exactly. I think in your blog post you also talk about nurturing the child within, right?
Yes.
Just on that point, again, being a doctor and all that, isn't the concept of marks or grading systems as well destroys individuality in kids, so that when they grow up, and this is one of the reasons why like people lose their whys, their whats, because they thought the system, I'm only as good as my grades, not as what I can offer, right? I mean, is that true? Don't you think so?
It is. You know what? And that's another example of how we are looking outside of ourselves for validation.
Yes.
We're looking outside of ourselves for the value of who we are. And absolutely, it is. And you know what? There's a lot of pressure on that. I know in India, in the school system, there's a ton of pressure. I think it's eased up a bit over the years, maybe a little bit. I hope so. But there's a ton of pressure there. And that is also it's very important. So I think, on the flip side of that, I think it's important that for children, that they start to learn to really nurture and to hang on to that self-confidence, that sense of self, that sense of value that they bring, that they're bringing something unique as individuals, but they're also together. That kind of thing needs to be nurtured. And that would be great in the school system if they could nurture that and figure out a new way to be able to give marks and grades for kids.
Exactly. I think
Yeah.
it'll be much better outcome. You also talk about the power of forgiveness, right?
Yes.
Now, this is like a two-part question. So the first part is, in your opinion, just how powerful is the act of forgiving? And secondly, should we always forgive and forget?
It's a great question. Forgiveness to me is very important because a lot of times when we're hanging on to whatever the hurt or the anger of some situation that's happened, we're actually doing so much more damage to ourselves. We're cutting a part of ourself off from from the whole being, from the whole picture. And that's where I think for a healing aspect it's very, very important. It also frees up a lot of energy that you're spending on this grudge that you're holding or whatever you're holding on to that doesn't it's not necessary. It's kind of a waste of your energy. It's unfortunate that you're using your energy for that, where you can be using it maybe towards your happiness and your joy and those kinds of things. I don't really know if there's any kind of forgetting, like forgiving and forgetting. I think that there's always a lesson or something that we can learn, an opportunity in each situation that comes. So forgiveness can definitely, you can definitely forgive. I don't know if we always forget because, when these things happen, when we have these situations happen, they get into our minds and they get into our memory. But you can change, you can reframe the perspective that you look upon that experience, which is also part of the forgiveness as well.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I get what you mean. Yeah. Now we've again touched on this earlier. We
Mm-hmm.
talked about living in the moment. This is not easy. This is one of those things that's easier said than done, right?
Yes.
So I just want to ask you for tips, even for me. Like, how do we keep ourselves locked into the moment and stop worrying about the future or reminiscing about the past?
This is one of the biggest challenges, I think, for everybody.
Yes, it is.
And especially with all the distractions that we have and all the noise
Yes.
around us.
Yeah.
Being present, it's a matter of practicing it. And what I mean by practicing it is that, first of all, having some sort of daily rituals that you do that are non-negotiable. And what I mean, like for me, for example, meditation, yoga is non-negotiable. Like that is something that just, it doesn't matter if I'm on holiday, it doesn't matter where I am, it doesn't matter what I'm not going to skip it, because for me, that is something that helps me get in the present moment. It gets me in a certain mood to start the day. And I have noticed, I did an experiment years ago of not doing it, and I will never not do it again because of what it did. So there's going to be certain exercises that you can do. It doesn't have to be meditation and yoga, for example. It can be other things. But once you start to cultivate this habit, then what happens is that you will learn to catch yourself in the moment that you start going too far into the future or into the past. You will be able to catch yourself quicker and bring yourself back to the moment. Okay, does that make sense? That's
Yeah.
something that's really, yeah.
So yoga as well as meditation has helped you sort of center yourself. Is that?
Yes, that helps center. It helps really bring myself to more of a presence, meaning getting my own individual self kind of out of the way, bringing that calmness within. Let me put it that way. So that way I can be readily available for whoever I'm going to interact with that day and be in the moment that I'm in and not worry about what's going to happen an hour from now or what happened 2 hours ago, to be able. And there are a lot of times that, for example, there's certain breathing exercises, certain things that I do before I'm getting ready to do something that'll be my go-to. That'll be my little thing to bring me to the moment. That way I'm not bothered by, the future or the past. It's a very tough thing to practice. I realize that. And it's a practice. It's always in progress for all of us.
I would love to know how to meditate. I would love. I think I've tried it maybe a few years back, but again,
right.
When you, I have no idea how to do it, because there are so. I mean, how do you, quiet down your thoughts? There's so many in your mind, right? So, do you teach people how to meditate? Do you guide them?
I do guide people to meditate. And it's interesting because there's so many different types of meditation. and not all forms help everybody. So some people like complete, silence, stillness. Other people like guided meditation. Other people like to listen to music. You can do also active meditation, like walking meditation, for example. That helps a lot of people, for example. It's really not really about stilling the mind. Of course, we want to become actually the observer that is behind the mind. We're getting a little bit deep here now.
Wow, nice. The observer
really,
behind the mind. Nice.
right?
I like that.
It's really about tapping in to that essence of who we are, that we can just observe. These thoughts come through and we can just observe them, but we don't get attached to them. We don't let them take us down this rabbit hole. So there are different techniques, and I definitely work with clients in this way where we will, work on meditation. I have a membership program, Aspire membership program, where I do guided meditations monthly and things like that to help support people that are really wanting to find that calmness, that stillness, to be able to kind of quieten the chatter in their mind.
You know what? I may be just one of your students, because I think it's very helpful. I like this whole state of mind I'm in right now. It's more calm. You tend to appreciate things, get more ideas. Things are better this way. Yeah. Now, another thing that you have written about is shedding your skin, right? But before we get to that, right, I think a lot of people in this world know what's wrong and what's right with them. Yeah. I think they do. I think internally we do, right? There's a voice. But the problem is, because we are such communal creatures, our need to conform overbears over our need to make changes in ourselves. Right. So how do we shed our skin when we have such mentalities?
Yeah, this is, it's kind of like the mob mentality. We kind of just go along with the whole crowd, and we don't want to stand out from the crowd, because then we won't be accepted or we're not part of the group. And so this is where that connection and acceptance of ourself comes first. So for example, in order to accept anybody else truly, we have to accept ourselves on these levels. We have to have that forgiveness with ourselves for the things that we think are wrong. And when you're talking about making good or bad decisions, for example, from that perspective, we all know what would be the best thing to do. You're right. But we don't always do it because of peer pressure, because of, oh, well, they're all doing this, I must also do it the same way. It's, again, the both and. It's about being your individual self and not being afraid to be your individual self, your authentic self. And also, you can still be part of the group. You may not be part of the group in the way that society says that it should look like, but it's also shedding those shoulds and the way it's supposed to look. It doesn't, because we're taught, this is the way. You go to school, for example, you get a degree, you get a job, you get the house with the fence and all this other, all these other things. It doesn't have to look like that. And if we can accept that and really accept that within ourselves, then it becomes easier for us to stay true to who we are and also be part of that group or be part of a group. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. But still on that point, one of the things that a lot of people I know, especially around me, including myself, we've all made mistakes in the past. We've all made mistakes that I wouldn't say haunt us, but they become baggage that we carry.
Right.
Right. And sometimes this baggage can come in the way of our shedding of our skin.
Right.
How do we just let it go? Literally, how do we do that?
Yeah, no, you know what? This goes back to what we were just talking about forgiveness. If you can look at the perspective, shift the perspective to say that at the moment, whatever it was that you did, whatever it was, that you were doing your utmost best with the knowledge and the experience that you had at that time in your life. And appreciate that. It's kind of like seeing say, for example, you did something whenever you were younger, whenever you're a child. Okay. If you can get to the perspective of seeing that child, that innocent child, that child did not have the knowledge that you have now. Because what happens is that we judge things as good or bad based on our perspective now. That probably was not the same perspective of life or whatever it was that you had at that time. And that's how we can start to heal that and let that go and just forgive ourselves and say, okay, well, you know what? I'm human. We make mistakes. I learned this, this, and this from it. Now, if I make the same mistake again, then that's really on us, really. You know, then we really haven't learned. So
Exactly.
you know, so that's one way to be able to deal with that and to be able to let it go. I won't say that it'll just automatically drop and you'll be able to let it go immediately, but over time, your relationship and your perspective with it will shift.
Interesting. Now, another thing that you talk about, you say, and I love this phrase, falling apart is an illusion.
Yeah.
Could you please elaborate on that? I mean, what does that mean?
So what that means, usually, you know, we think that, oh my gosh, my life is falling apart. You know, maybe you've lost your job, you know, your relationship has ended, whatever, all these things. But in fact, you know what? Things happen for a reason in our life, and it's all serving, it's all good. Okay. Now I know we're used to thinking good, bad, this is good. But actually, everything that's happening to us in our life is serving a higher purpose. We may not see it at the time, but it definitely is serving something good. So this idea of falling apart is really, it could be the quite opposite, that things are starting to fall together, that we're actually starting to get to the core of who we are. And getting to that core of who we are is actually bringing or emerging a type of life, or the life that we actually truly want and desire. So, you know, so it's like, but we have a tendency to think that it's a bad thing when things, and it's hard. I mean, as human beings, it's hard. Even like right now, for example, I know with COVID-19, what's going on, a lot of people are feeling like, oh my God, my entire life is falling apart. I've lost my job. I've lost this. I've lost that. And I know that it's difficult in the moment, but you know what? There's a bigger purpose. There's a higher reason. There's a bigger reason for it. And if we can just trust in that, then we'll be able to make it out of that a lot quicker.
Wow, that is very beautiful. I think that's a very nice thing. So before we go, I just would like you to share to our viewers today, like, you know, how do they get in touch with you? What are the services kind of thing that they can engage you for and stuff?
Sure. The easiest way is to go to my website, theprasadmethod.com, and they can contact me or my assistant from there directly. I do a variety of things. You know, a lot of times I'm working one-on-one with clients with one-on-one coaching and mentoring. I also do group coaching. I have a membership. There's lots of different ways. You can definitely, you know, if you have any questions on what would be the best way or most effective way for you to engage with the work that I'm doing, then please just reach out to me and we'll get back in touch with you and discuss it with you.
Nice. Thank you very much. Of course, thank you so much for being here on the show. I think it was really fun, especially that last thing. I think the way you summed it up, that because I was reading your website, like falling apart is an illusion. I was trying to figure out what does that mean.
What does that mean?
What does that mean? Okay, but before we go, do you have any closing remarks for the viewers?
I would just like to say, for those of you out there, you know what, really dare to be your greatness. And what I mean by that is really go out there and create and give. We're here all for a reason. We're all here together. And anything that you can do to shine your light brightly in this world is definitely going to help the greater good. So I wish everyone the best in what their endeavors are.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Asha. And I hope we actually meet again. Thank you. Bye.
Okay,
See you.
thank you. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.